Nashville Predators versus San Jose Sharks features an interesting defenseman matchup between Erik Karlsson and Roman Josi, two players with near historic seasons under their belt. We'll compare Karlsson's year this year to Josi's last year. Plus, an interesting topic of conversation on Twitter about the league's most hated players, one from each team. We are surprised by the Preds pick, plus we will give you our top 3 most hated players today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at insidethepreds.com.
We have an interesting show today that includes a topic about our most hated players and a list going around about the most hated players in the league. And neither of us really could understand the pick for Nashville, but we're going to try to break it down here in just a little bit. But first, we got to have our main course before we get to our dessert. Nashville Predators versus San Jose Sharks tonight out on the West Coast. Yeah, and I mean, we're getting into do or die territory for the Preds, it seems.
And do or die territory is coming against teams where when you just sort of glance at a piece of paper, you think, oh, okay, Nashville's going to do. And yet when you dig a little bit deeper, you realize this could be a or die game. So I think tonight's game, even though it's a late puck drop. It's 9:30 Central Time, everyone. So I get that that's a lot to hang on for. But this is going to be a late game with some pretty significant implications because Nashville, y'all got to go out there and collect some points. You got to harvest some points.
Yeah. If you have a chance to go to bed at 10 o'clock tonight, I would advise you just do it because I feel like this game is going to be frustrating in one way or the other.
What, Vancouver?
I mean, like any Nashville Predators game over the past 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The San Jose Sharks are firmly in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, the suck hard for Bedard or whatever clever alliteration we're putting on that now. They're 18, 29, and 11. Nashville Predators are fighting for a playoff spot, 27, 22, and 6. You think this is like one of those games like, oh, on paper, Nashville should win this. Go through the stats.
Mm-hmm.
The breakdown of the stats, and you find yourself thinking, it feels like the San Jose Sharks are in some places better, perhaps equal to, at the very least, to the Nashville Predators. They have the better power play. They have the much better penalty kill.
Mm-hmm.
They have the better offense with a higher goals scored per game than the Nashville Predators. They have the better expected goals per game. The Nashville Predators have the better goals against per game, but as we mentioned, that's mostly because of UC Saros. San Jose actually has the better expected goals against per game, which means they're limiting chances better than Nashville's defense. And I look at this and said, if it wasn't for UC Saros, the San Jose Sharks right now could very well be like looking into a crystal ball if you're a Nashville Predators fan.
Yeah, what you're seeing now could very much be the future for Nashville Predators fans, 100%. Here's one thing I will say about the San Jose Sharks. I know that they're in the hunt for Connor Bedard. And I know that, like you said, their record's 18, 29, and 11. So this is not a winning franchise. But what I want to say about them is they may not be winning, but by dang, they're entertaining.
Sure. Yeah. I guess. Bless you.
Thank you. They're kind of a fun team to watch. Like, they have some interesting players, and we're going to talk about one of the best storylines in just a second coming out of San Jose, Erik Karlsson. I am here for this storyline. But they're an interesting, fun team to watch. Like, this is a team, I know, like I said, I know where they're at in the standings, but there is still an energy about this team. And there is some sort of a cloudy vibe right now with the Nashville Predators where it's not confidence, but it's also not like, hey, we know where we're at, we know who we are, but we're going to have fun anyway, which is sort of like San Jose when you watch them play. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a different energy despite the different record in a completely different place, not a completely different, but a somewhat different place in the standings with San Jose. So I think tonight has potential to really reveal some of the weaknesses in Nashville's game, especially when it comes to special teams. And again, I think tonight, yet again, is going to be a game that comes down to goaltending.
Yeah.
For UC Saros.
And UC Saros deserves a fruit basket or a nice spa day from the Nashville Predators for basically keeping them at least in the conversation right now. I mean, the Predators should probably be in full rebuild mode at the moment, but UC Saros is like the last Band-Aid that is stuck to your skin. It's got like a little bit of hair on it, so it kind of hurts when you pull on it. You can't rip it off. UC Saros is like the last little bandage you have to pull off before all the bleeding of the Nashville Predators comes out, and they'll be able to kind of restart from scratch.
That was dark, Nick, and disturbing.
I mean, he is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the analogy's wrong. I'm just saying the analogy's gross.
What would you have preferred? What analogy would you have preferred?
You know what? I think the cheese stands alone. UC Saros is the last hope, the last great hope for
the last baby bell in an otherwise empty fridge.
There you go. I love that. That's great. He is the last baby bell.
Yeah. Another interesting storyline is going to be from the San Jose Sharks is Timo Meier going to be on the ice, because I feel like that would significantly maybe shift some things in the game. If you don't know or don't follow hockey or live under a rock, Timo Meier, a 30-goal scorer right now. He is on the trade block, firmly on the trade block. He is going to be a restricted free agent in the offseason, and the qualifying offer would make him like one of the richest players in the NHL, just his qualifying offer.
Yeah.
So the San Jose Sharks appear not willing to pay that. There is word that he may be healthy scratched up until a trade is made, just so they don't potentially lose him. He did get banged up a little bit in a previous game, and I think maybe that woke the Sharks up to be like, yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if Meier's out of the lineup, there's 31 goals gone for the Sharks offense. That's
bless you.
Thank you. It's traveling today. That's 31 goals gone from a Sharks offense that is already very top heavy and very thin. Maybe an opening there for the Preds.
Yeah, maybe. Rumor also is James Reimer will start in net tonight for the San Jose Sharks. So, that could work. God bless him. But none of the Sharks goaltenders are really having their best seasons this season. So, here's what I'm saying to the Nashville Predators. Shoot the puck. Just throwing it out there, throwing it on the front stoop, see what the cat licks up, shoot the puck, get in front of the net for some juicy rebounds. Like, let's not go for pretty tonight.
Yeah.
Let's go for greasy goals that win the game.
All right. So be sure to tune in tomorrow as we talk about James Reimer's 25 save shutout.
Yes.
And let's see, Martin Kaut getting a hat trick in this game.
Yeah.
Why not? or Mikey Eyssimont. There's another name very prone to just doing something Gretzky-esque against the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, you never know.
This team, man. There's another intriguing matchup between these two teams. Erik Karlsson and Roman Josi. Now, Erik Karlsson having a near 100-point season this year. He's on the pace for 100. He is your Norris Trophy odds-on favorite, according to odds makers. So why was Roman Josi the runner-up last year when he's had quite a similar season? We're going to tackle that topic coming up next. But first, want to mention today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The second half of the NBA season is just now starting out after a pretty boring NBA All-Star game. Apparently, it's not just exclusive to the NHL. So now that game action's back, it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And that's because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you have to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, which is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores, 3-point strained. You can bet the spread. You can do player props, like how many points is Steph Curry going to get? How many rebounds will LeBron have? How many assists will Russell Westbrook have in whatever market he winds up? And there's more exclusive bets, like the 2x3, which is 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes of the game. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bet when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment worth. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, and so we set this up a little bit before the break. It's Erik Karlsson, who is having a monster year right now. You talked about him earlier. A good story because this guy seemed a little bit washed going into the season. He now has 76 points in 58 games. The pace he's scoring on would put him at 100, which, as we talked during our Roman Josi coverage last year, the first defenseman in what is now 30 years to top the 100-point mark. Yeah. Roman Josi almost did that last year. He was on the pace for a while, kind of fell off a little bit at the end of March, got some of it back, but couldn't quite there. Finished with a measly 96, like a loser. But here's the thing, man. You look at the Norris Trophy odds. Remember what the conversation against Josi was last year?
Oh, yeah, his defense. His defensive stats.
It was, hey, like offenses and everything, blah, 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 blah. You got to play defense too, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And all this stuff. And that doesn't seem to be the case with Karlsson this year. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, Erik Karlsson is the guy this year, like runaway favorite for the Norris. So you look at his defensive stats, they're not too far off from what Roman Josi was last year. I mean, Karlsson's got the better Corsi for percentage, but expected goals against per 60 minutes, Karlsson 2.55. Roman Josi had 2.37. These were both at 5-on-5. Karlsson better Corsi against per game, but only about 3 chances per game than Roman Josi, which I mean is a fairly decent number, but it's not like earth-shattering. It's not like Roman Josi was giving up like a plethora of chances per game. So it's hard to imagine or hard not to notice that Erik Karlsson is the runaway favorite for the Norris Trophy without much opposition, when this time last year, Roman Josi, with similar stats, was getting a lot of flack, not just from Colorado fans, but from around the league.
And
interesting, Anna.
If you remember, there was actually one voter who didn't even have him on his Norris ballot, which I'll remember on my deathbed. for sure. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting because their seasons, Josi last year, Karlsson this year, they're running very parallel. And like you said, he is the odds-on favorite right now for the Norris. And again, we come back to this thing with the NHL and their awards. They have this ambiguity around what is valued. And I think you can see it changes from season to season. I do think probably one of the biggest factors here is the Cale Makar factor.
Right.
Because you don't have an outstanding defenseman playing at the level that Cale Makar played last season. But I do find it very, very interesting that it seems to change season to season what you value. And again, the Cale Makar factor is a big thing. But I think it was very easy for people to dismiss Roman Josi as not being the Norris front runner because so much was focused on his offense. And yet here we have Erik Karlsson, very similar offensive numbers. And that is considered to his credit in the Norris Trophy race this season. So look, I'm tired of the ambiguity here, folks.
Yeah. And remember back in the day when Erik Karlsson was with Ottawa and he wasn't necessarily known for his stay-at-home defensive skills, you had Shea Weber on the Nashville Predators a couple of different times who had the by far better defensive season and had not as good, but decent numbers, enough to be right behind Karlsson. And they gave it to Karlsson because it's like, oh, the numbers were too good. You've seen it before with some other players, getting the nod for really good offensive seasons over, guys that had not as good, but still pretty good numbers, but also really good defensive skills. It changes every year. And I agree 100%. I think the fact that Cale Makar was like, 1A, 1B situation with Josi, I think that was also, I think a lot of people were also very pro Cale Makar. Right. I don't think it was enough to leave Roman Josi off the Norris ballot altogether, aka that guy with the dumb hat. But I think that's just the frustrating thing. And it's like, if you're going by criteria this year, like, well, why not Adam Fox, who, is, according to FanDuel, the second best odds. And, he's got really good numbers. He's got like a 55-point season this year. And he is also defensively maybe one of the best defensemen in the NHL right now, according to Pure Stats, the best two-way defenseman. So why isn't there more people jumping on the no? It's about defense. It's about defense. It should be Adam Fox. It should be Rasmus Dahlin or whoever you want to put in that conversation.
Yeah.
Is that just an anti-Roman Josi thing? Is that just a Nashville Predators, blah, 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 blah?
I wonder how much of it, I'm curious what your take is, how much of it is consciously or subconsciously storyline? And I get Cale Makar's defensive stats last year. We heard the argument ad nauseum, keyword nauseum, from the Colorado Avalanche group about Cale Makar's stats. But how much of that was the Colorado Avalanche story subconsciously or consciously playing into the Cale Makar narrative last year? They're this powerhouse team and nobody can stop them. And they're destined for the cup and they're so great. And it's because of Cale Makar, and that feeds in. How much of that this year is, and I'm not saying I'm not here for it, but how much of that this year is, here you have this 32-year-old hockey geriatric defenseman.
Okay,
Erik
he's
Karlsson.
younger than me, so let's cool it on the geriatric.
I intentionally said hockey geriatric because, he could be my son. But, how much of it is just great narrative, and not saying that Erik Karlsson statistically is not worthy of being a Norris front runner. 100% he is. But I wonder how much, when you look at stats and you look at players that may be comparable, how much does good storyline play into some of these awards? Like, I really have to wonder.
I mean, yeah, it could be. I mean, it's no like mathematic equation or anything like that. It's not the BCS.
Yeah.
So, voters have human emotions. They can look and say, in context, this is, fantastic.
Right.
I'm just saying, why do it for some and not for others? I mean, Roman Josi last year, that was a pretty good story.
Sure was.
He was in the same conversation as guys like Ray Bourque in terms of stats, for that one season alone. Phil Housley, guys who are widely considered some of the best defensemen of that era. Roman Josi was doing something that hasn't been seen since that era, which was like considered kind of a once in a lifetime for scoring in the NHL, especially for defensemen. And, so why now that Karlsson's doing it is everybody all of a sudden like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For the record, Karlsson has my vote.
Me too.
Karlsson absolutely has my
Yes.
vote. This isn't to dismiss Erik Karlsson's claim. This is just, what's the difference this year from last year? Is it narrative? Is it the fact that there's not as strong of a runner-up as Cale Makar was to Josi last year? Is it a little bit from column A, column B? Or is it a little bit of, anti-Nashville bias, if such a thing exists?
If such a thing were to exist, Tim Peel.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Tim Peel and people we absolutely hate, an interesting topic of conversation was going around yesterday about the most hated players in the NHL. Not 100% sure where this list came from, but there was a graphic showing each team's most hated player in the NHL. It certainly got a lot of our Locked On colleagues talking. It had some, pretty obvious ones like Evander Kane from Edmonton, Corey Perry from Tampa Bay, Ryan Reeves from Minnesota, Bennington from St. Louis. For the Nashville Predators, Matt Duchene.
My husband feels so seen.
Yeah. Why?
What? Is this one really baffled me in setting aside my Matt Duchene marriage counseling bias completely aside. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I mean, I just don't get, do you not like country music and that's it? Do you feel like he left Colorado on such a bad note that the entire league has some sort of a thing against him? Is it
the Uber ride video, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. But then again, here's my other question to you. Who else on the Nashville Predators team could be hated? Really? Right now? Like who on the roster?
From another team, Borowiecki, maybe? Tanner Jeannot from like an opposite team perspective?
I don't know. I really feel like, okay, first of all, if anybody doesn't like Mark Borowiecki, we're going to have to sit down and have a little chit chat about that.
Well, I mean, as a player.
Yeah, but I still think there's just a general respect. And it's interesting on this list that was floating around, a lot of them were that enforcer role. So I think that kind of plays into it. But I was really racking my brain, like, who is somebody on the Nashville Predators team that other teams must not like, that thinks they're a jerk? And I'm like, we don't really, do we have a jerky pants?
Let me tell you, if Nashville Predators were in charge of this list, I know which player they would put on their most hated players list for their own team.
Who
has Twitter been trying to burn down for this entire season, Ann?
Oh, well, I'm talking on ice.
I think both on ice and off ice. There's some people that are like, yeah.
But I just can't even entertain that. I just can't even entertain that. That is ridiculous.
Okay. I thought I was setting up a good joke, and
no, but see, I can't even get there. I'm sorry. I was literally like David Poile, duh.
Yeah.
Which probably
the fact that there's that many people, the Predators fan base hates on their own organization right now. that we have to specify which one.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
No.
Yeah,
We just are a lot of really nice guys. I mean, like, we just don't have a jerky pants right now.
What about you, Ann? Who are your 3 most hated players around the league?
So here's what's real about me. I love Jesus and I'm a optimist and I'm a super, super nice person, but I hold grudges like it's my job. Okay. I have an invisible backpack of hockey grudges. And in that backpack sit 3 very specific players.
Okay.
1, Robert Bortuzzo.
Yes.
Don't even at me. November 2019, I saw what you did to Victor Arvidsson and I'm done with you. Like, we have broken up. I'm done with you. Don't come around.
Yeah.
Number 2 is one I think this graphic got right, and that is Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, 100%.
I just don't have time for, like, I have raised teenagers. I do not want to pay money to sit and watch a grown-ass man act like one professionally. So I don't have time for Jordan Binnington. But let's talk about who I really hate. Like, who lives in the locked zipper pocket of my invisible backpack of hockey grudges, friends? Corey Perry.
Yep. Slowly walking down the Cotton Bowl tunnel to the top of your list.
I mean, what in the world? Yeah. And I love it because our friend Adam Denker, who covers the Bolts for Locked On, was like, who could possibly hate, like, who could hate Corey Perry? And I'm like, I have an entire PowerPoint presentation I would like you to sit down and grab some popcorn for, because, and here's what I want to say. I'm sure that they're probably lovely off the ice, and I hope that their moms know that I think they've probably done a fine job. But just on the ice and for what has happened in relation to the Nashville Predators, those are my most hated.
Yeah. I agree with Perry and Binnington. I think hands down. Perry for obvious reasons.
Yep.
Jordan Binnington for obvious reasons. And if he was still in the league, I feel like Ryan Kessler would be up there too.
Yeah.
Maybe Ryan Getzlaf to a lesser extent. I'm trying to think of like players from those like Ducks teams that you just hated. You know, I would say Patrick Kane.
For sure.
Maybe the 3rd guy on that list. I mean, he's not like there's a couple that you could put there, but I mean, Patrick Kane, not only was he just a Preds killer, but you go to some of his off-ice stuff and, you know, you look at how he's kind of handling the Blackhawks exit now. It's 1 week to the trade deadline from tomorrow, and he reportedly is, didn't tell the Blackhawks whether he, wants to be traded or not yet, whether he's going to waive his no move clause. Apparently told him that, he was only going to go to either New York or Toronto. And now that those 2 teams have filled a forward spot, there's a little bit of hissy fittedness going around in some of his comments to the press. He's like, I'm disappointed Tarasenko got traded.
Yes.
Just seems like a little bit of a nozzle. And a little bit of a nozzle to me. I mean, there's other players like Matthew Tkachuk. You watch some of his highlights. The fact that his last name is Tkachuk automatically docks points for me as a longtime Red Wings supporter. There's other players like Ryan Reeves, who's taking out some players. Tom Wilson.
Yes. Yep.
You know who's not on my list, Anne?
Who's that?
That's on a lot of people's list. Brad Marchand.
Really?
I like Brad Marchand.
For reals?
Hey, I like his little like stir the pot like kind of thing. Just like innocent trolls on Twitter and random people. Sorry, Ian McLaren, who hosts the Locked On Bruins, a popular target.
Yeah.
But it's something to talk about. And it's not like he's, going after people and shouting vitriol at him or something like that. It seems like just like chirping.
He's just kind of the right combination of annoying and cutting without being inappropriate. He's very like high drama 8th grade girl.
Yes, you've heard it here first, folks. Brad Marchand is an 8th grade girl.
Yeah.
Please
but
don't.
still.
Please don't add him that we said that. Or if you do it, at least at the part that showed we like that. We think it's
yes,
fun.
context,
funny.
people. We have learned that context matters.
Yes. So we're interested to hear your takes. Tweet us at LO_Predators or comment on our YouTube page and let us know who your 3 most hated players in the NHL are right now. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. However you're listening to us right now, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to subscribe. Not only will you be the first to know when we have new content out for you, but you will also help us out. And at the end of the day, we hope we're not on your list of 3 most hated Predators podcast. That's going to do it for us today in the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with Preds Sharks recap. We'll see you then.